This idea that they changed the narrative from the original story that the evil queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty. But in this movie, they use the word fairness in the social Marxist, in many cases, sense. And they talked about how everybody in the kingdom who worked would have an equal share and all this. I mean, they really laid it on thick. To which you get to the end of the movie, and as I'm walking out, it kind of suddenly occurred to me, I'm like, wait a minute. If fairness on the magic mirror was about who was most kind and the most fair-hearted.
And it would have never been the evil queen.
Exactly. Right.
Renegade Online.
My thoughts on this, and maybe Pro could give me his thoughts, because the only other live action I have not seen yet is I've actually not seen Cinderella.
You need to see that one. That's like the only good one. It's good with Lily James and Richard Madden. It's actually really
because that was Kenneth Branagh. That's why.
It's the last good one. You'll enjoy that one.
Okay, so I haven't seen that one, and I haven't seen Little Mermaid, but I was told I wasn't missing much on Little Mermaid for, I don't want to see that.
The only good scene was when she flopped on the deck and like had to kill Ursula, because that was just entertaining and funny, that she just looked that ridiculous, just like a fish out of water saving herself instead of Eric. But yeah.
But I think, because since Cinderella I know is considered good, Little Mermaid people don't like. In my opinion, I've not seen Little Mermaid. I think that this is the worst Disney live action. Pro, I'd be interested on your take on that. Do you think the same, or is Little Mermaid worse?
The worst. Okay, so I think this is really bad. And
it's bad.
Cruella might be worse.
Okay, I don't consider Cruella, and at least as a female with Cruella, one, you had a heck of an acting performance by Emma Stone. You had amazing. I mean, talk about the opposite effect of like her cheap clothing in this, amazing clothes. And that
I'll mention that. I can't get over the fact that her parents were killed by Dalmatians with a roundhouse kick off a cliff. I mean,
it was a bad movie. I just don't consider that like a remake, because it was, we didn't have a Cruella.
It was like an origin story.
Yeah, it's like an origin story.
Yeah. I'll tell you why this one's so bad is because it's very clearly two films. And in the first film, the one that was first shot, Snow White was supposed to leave the queen behind and go join Jonathan and his ragtag bandits, the 7 bandits, one of which is a dwarf. And then she was supposed to usurp Jonathan and come back with rebellion. And many of those scenes are still there, except for the parts where she trains with them and helps them lead the rebellion and all that. And then what they did is they realized, people are going to lose their minds if this is not the original story. So we're going to have to go back. And so what they did then is they gave us this CGI washed homage to the original. And you can tell when the second film is there, because the second film is nonstop urine yellow filter, right?
Oh, it was so visually not appealing.
It's nauseating because it's the color of, enough of that, folks, but it is. And so what you have is beginning, you get the first film. Then we go into the Snow White animated stuff. We make a very brief departure with the bandits, get back to the dwarves, end the Snow White original story. Okay. And we didn't have money in the budget anymore for any kind of coffin or anything. So just layer on a slab of rocks and smooch her. Let's go with the most non-romantic kiss in the history of cinema. And then we get back to the first film where she leads the rebellion. And that's why it doesn't make any sense, because it's two absolutely different films. Snow White is totally different in the two films. Her personality is totally different in the two different films. And they don't know how to end it then, because, what do you do with this? We had bandits that were supposed to fight the evil queen. They don't have enough screen time to show up. We have dwarves that are supposed to be in this thing. We're just going to have them stand in front of the castle for a few seconds, and that'll count. And so what are we going to do to defeat the queen? Well, she's going to get real pissy, and as a result, she's going to turn into a black goo monster and be sucked into another dimension. The end. Now
pretty
party.
Can we get into that too at the very end? And I've not even brought this up on our review. We're going to be getting into full spoilers tomorrow night on our live stream at 6:30. But at the very end, Snow White literally just like walks up, like they're going to take over the city. She walks up like there's no weapons. There's nothing. It's just Snow White walking. Everyone follows her for some reason. and like they would all be slaughtered. And
I will explain. I can tell you why. It's so funny. But I'm going to start with this. And we have two other guests coming in, but I've got to play this first because to hell with it.
Did I frighten you?
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
It's a disaster, but Brett DeSovic and Paul Chatto is here, and Paul Chatto is on his microwave making a roast. What the hell are you doing, Paul?
I'm not making a roast in the microwave. I'm now tenting the roast.
This is his new cooking channel.
So that's 15 minutes I got it tented for. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me.
Good to see you here, man. It's been way too long.
Hey.
Okay.
I was listening to you guys, and I thought I'd make some comments, and nice to be invited.
I'm glad you're here. And Brett, I know you really enjoyed this movie. You thought it was the best movie you've ever seen.
Look,
in
I
your
loved
entire...
it. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. I loved it. It was fantastic. See, but the thing is I'm a contrarian, so I didn't hate it as much as everybody else, but part of that might just be because everybody else hated it, so I have to not hate it, to be completely honest.
That's true. That's true. That is your MO, and I get that. And I'm interested to hear in your thoughts about it.
I was sad. I mean, there was a perfectly good bridge for the evil queen to fall off of, which would have been much more on brand. If she had fallen off the bridge by trying to stab at Snow White, that would have made more sense to me. But I said that the king, see, this is why I have a soft spot for it, because the king, he was basically just a really, really good middle management boss who kept everybody happy with pizza parties on Fridays. That's what they were talking about. They were talking about he went out and he picked apples and he made everybody apple pie. And that's how you keep an entire kingdom of people from rebelling. You give them apple pie. It's perfectly fine.
I didn't even get to say my favorite part of the script is that they keep telling us these things. Like one person will be like, Snow White, you're so brave. Then the next person will be like, Snow White, you're so kind. And then
fair.
the next person, Snow White, you're so fair.
Fair. Oh my.
Oh my gosh. Like it was like, you make this stop?
The word fair and fairness was overused to the point of just nausea. And it was, this is the part of the movie, and a few people have started bringing this up, and they're absolutely right. This idea that they changed the narrative, that from the original story, that the evil queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty. But in this movie, they use the word fairness in the social Marxist, in many cases, sense of the word. And they talked about how everybody in the kingdom who worked would have an equal share and all this. I mean, they really laid it on thick. To which, you get to the end of the movie, and as I'm walking out, it kind of suddenly occurred to me, I'm like, wait a minute. If fairness on the magic mirror was about who was the most kind and the most fair-hearted person, because that's what the movie distinctly alluded to.
And it would have never been the evil queen.
Exactly.
Right. Makes no sense.
It made no sense throughout the time. It kept switching. It made no sense.
The mirror should have said, Your Majesty, literally everyone except you.
Like
and
you're fair.
It was almost like this movie was written by a drunk Canadian comedy troupe. Paul, I'm sure you can...
I can give you many to pick from.
Many.
I didn't see the movie, but listening to this is hilarious. I'm not going to see it because I don't technically review movies.
I know. I had to see it. My chat spent a lot of money to make me go see it, Paul.
Yeah.
So I had to go see it.
My chat has forced me in the past to do that also. This time they didn't, thankfully. I'm actually in the middle of reviewing the very pilot episode of I Dream of Jeannie.
Great
which
show.
I think was going to be way more interesting.
Definitely.
Yes. I would agree.
I mean, like how much of I've not seen the original in so long. How much of the original's even intact?
Enough that they could get rid of the complaints about the dwarfs are not here and there's no romance. And that is it. They got the apple in there, but they even changed the apple. In the original, the apple kills you. It's called a poisoned apple for a reason. It's not called a NyQuil. But in this one, they go to great lengths to make sure that you know that apple won't kill you, which takes all the tension away because she's laying there breathing. And this doc fellow just performed open heart surgery on a guy who got shot in the aorta with an arrow, and yet they're all freaked out as if it's a funeral. She's laying there breathing.
Something that doesn't make sense. So in the movie, right, the queen captures Jonathan the bandit, not the prince, not to confuse the chat so you guys know, that twice, right? And she gets him after Snow White already falls into the sleep. But doesn't she read, just like in the original, where she's like, true love's kiss? In the original, she laughs about it because she doesn't believe in true love. Doesn't this queen read that and she decides to keep him alive? Like, she was thinking about killing him earlier on, right? Ties him to the gates and was going to let him freeze to death. Snow White lets him go. So now, knowing that this person, she knows about their connection, she's just going to let him live, knowing that he can bring her back? That does not make sense.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.